Welcome to Walvis Wire today. We're talking about Ben Chong's acceptance of the Sabah cabinet exclusion.
And this is a really fascinating moment. It cuts right to the heart of how power is shared, or maybe not shared, in Sabah.
Exactly. We're looking at the new cabinet, specifically the top jobs minister and deputy chief minister roles, and the big headline is the total absence of a Chinese representative.
Which, in Sabah's history, is a huge deal. But what makes this story really compelling isn't just the exclusion.
It's the reaction from Ben Chong.
Yes, the sole Chinese assemblyman in the ruling Sabah People's Alliance. He didn't just stay quiet. He came out and publicly said he accepts it.
It's so counterintuitive. Why would a politician essentially accept his own community being sidelined from the top table?
That's the question. Is this some kind of strategic 4D chess move, or is it just a recognition of a harsh new political reality?
Let's start with the tradition, the way things were supposed to be. What was that historical setup?
Well, the context is everything here. Sabah's political stability for decades was built on this unwritten rule about the 3 deputy chief minister posts.
These weren't just any posts, they were allocated very specifically.
Very specifically, it was almost a sacred arrangement. One post was for a Chinese leader,
Okay.
one for a Muslim Bumiputera leader, and the third for a non-Muslim Bumiputera leader.
So a three-way split to guarantee representation for the main ethnic blocs.
Exactly. It was a mechanism to ensure everyone felt they had a voice at the very top. It stopped any single group from dominating.
And it's important to remember, Bumiputera in Sabah isn't one single group. It's incredibly diverse.
That's right. So that split between Muslim and non-Muslim Bumiputera was also crucial for internal balance.
But the new cabinet, it just throws that whole blueprint out the window.
Completely. And to be fair, the cracks were already showing. The previous government didn't quite follow the tradition either.
But this feels like a definitive break.
It is. If you look at who got the jobs, you have Dato Seri Jeffrey Kittingen and Dato Seri Masidi Manjun from the Sabah People's Alliance,
Right.
and Datuk Iwan Benedict from the United Progressive Kinabalu organization.
And the glaring omission is that none of them are of Chinese descent.
None. So that historical expectation is gone. And it's not just the deputy chief minister roles. There are no full ministers of Chinese descent either.
So it's a complete exclusion from the senior executive.
It is. And if you look at the appointments, you can see a clear pattern. The power has consolidated around the Bumiputera leaders, especially from the Kadazan, Dusun, Murit, and Rungus communities, the KDMR groups.
So that slot, the one traditionally for a Chinese leader, has essentially been reallocated to strengthen the coalition's core indigenous base.
That's the practical outcome. And that brings us to Ben Chong's justification for all this, which is really where the story gets complicated.
Okay, let's unpack his reasoning, because it's not as simple except he laid out a very detailed political argument.
He did, and it's incredibly frank for a Malaysian politician. His first point was basically aimed directly at his own community.
He blamed the voters.
In a way, yes. He pointed to the voting patterns, he said, and this is a paraphrase, that many Chinese voters had supported the opposition.
I see. So the implication is, if you don't back the winning horse, you can't expect a prize.
That's the brutal logic. He's framing representation not as a right based on demographics, but as a reward for loyalty and, for delivering votes.
That is a massive shift. It moves the goalposts from traditional power sharing to pure electoral transaction.
It really does. And his second point is maybe even more revealing about the internal politics of the coalition.
Yeah, was that?
He argued that even if he was offered one of the top spots, taking it would have been a bad move.
A bad move how? He said it would actually cause problems.
Yes. He said it would create resentment. He was very specific about which groups would be resentful.
Let me guess. The KDMR groups.
The very same ones. The Kadazan, Dusun, Murit, and Rungus voters. He argued they contributed far more to the Sabah People's Alliance's victory.
So his logic is that giving him a post over a more deserving leader from the coalition's main support base would be seen as a betrayal.
Precisely. He's saying the political cost of angering the KDMR communities would be far higher than the benefit of satisfying the Chinese community's historical expectation.
So it's a necessary sacrifice to keep the coalition stable.
That's his framing. He's essentially giving the chief minister political cover by saying, don't appoint me, it's better for the government's survival. It's a validation of a system based on performance over tradition.
But this whole situation is made so much worse by the fact that there was a promise made, a very explicit one.
Yes, that's a crucial piece of this. We have to talk about the commitment from the former chief minister, Haji Jinur.
This wasn't just some vague assurance, was it?
No, not at all. Before the state assembly was dissolved, he stood up publicly and promised the Chinese community that one of the three deputy chief minister jobs would go to a Chinese assemblyman.
That's a huge commitment. It was designed to calm nerves, to reassure people that the tradition of power sharing would continue no matter what.
It was a political contract, and now that contract has been broken completely.
So what does that do to political trust? Even if you accept Ben Chong's logic about voting patterns, the promise wasn't conditional. It was presented as a principle of governance.
It badly damages trust, not just for the Chinese community, but for any other group that relies on these unwritten agreements. Ben Chong's acceptance might help the coalition's stability today.
But
Tomorrow, it sends a message that promises can be discarded for political convenience. It basically says that election results can nullify any historical understanding.
And you, listening to this, have to ask,
Yeah.
is short-term stability worth sacrificing the long-term faith that communities have in the system's fairness?
It's a very dangerous precedent. And Ben Chung's statement, in a way, gives the leadership a perfect out. They're not breaking a promise, they're just rewarding loyalty.
That's a very convenient narrative. So if we zoom out a bit, what does this tell us about the bigger picture in Sabah and maybe even beyond?
I think it shows a clear trend away from guaranteed ethnic quotas and towards a system based on coalition loyalty and electoral performance.
A kind of political meritocracy, but where merit is measured in votes delivered for the winning side.
You could put it that way. The old lines that guaranteed a seat at the table are being erased. Now, your value is based on how much you contributed to the win.
And we see it here so clearly. The electoral strength of the Kadazan, Dusun, Murut, and Rungus groups is now being explicitly weighed against the tradition of Chinese representation. And it's winning.
And what's so striking is that this is being validated by a representative of the group that's losing out. Ben Chong is effectively endorsing a government built on electoral strength, not ethnic balance.
It's a huge evolution. It signals to other minority groups that they can't just rely on tradition anymore. They have to, pick a side and deliver for that side.
The other argument, of course, is that this is just democracy evolving, that if the traditional structures no longer reflect where the political support actually lies, then the government has to change to reflect that reality.
So we're back to that core tension we started with. Is it about upholding a tradition of shared governance, or is it about the cold, hard reality of coalition survival?
And right now, in Sabah, it looks like survival is winning. The cabinet is designed for internal cohesion, possibly at the expense of broader multi-ethnic harmony.
So what does this all mean? Ben Chong's acceptance is a really powerful signal about where the real power is in the Sabah government. It's with the core voter groups, the KDMR, and their loyalty is being prioritized over everything else. It forces us to ask what value tradition has when it's up against raw electoral numbers.
And that leaves us with a final provocative thought. What happens to the tradition of ethnic allocation in Malaysian state cabinets if political alliances are permanently allowed to supersede historical agreements, thereby making minority representation perpetually contingent on voting for the winner, rather than being a foundational aspect of governance?
Remember to like and subscribe for more videos like this.